Good morning, everybody. This is Tuesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. One of the things we've noticed over the last few years is the amount of cars on the road. And people say, yeah, there's lots of them. Well, it has more trucks than there are cars. In the last few years, well, we've actually seen the industry such as Fiat, Chrysler, Automotive, FCA is what they call them, Chrysler. They've dropped their line of cars, the 200 and another brand a couple years ago, and that's what's happening. Ford's doing the same thing. The people are getting rid of cars, not buying cars anymore, and buying trucks. Let me get back where I was at. There was an article I had that was pretty interesting. It was talking about how, let me get over here, talking about how just 5 years ago, sales were evenly split between cars and cars and light trucks. But through May right now of this year, cars are being outsold by trucks 2-to-1. That's pretty amazing out there. And there's no one size that fits all market. I mean, some people want the big trucks, some people, but one thing is for sure, they want a crossover or they want a truck, whether it's two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Now, the exception to the rule, you might say, would be like Subaru. Subaru has been a four-wheel drive crossover, like a truck, so to speak, but it's been a four-wheel drive ever since they've been around. But on the car wars out there, it's really it's turning where there's going to be more cars sold than by 2021 they're talking about 7 out of 10 vehicles sold out there. I want to make sure I'm saying this right. They're saying automakers are on pace. Yeah, here it is, right. He said trucks could account for 75 to 80% of U.S. light vehicles by 2025. Now, 2025 is when they're supposed to be getting the CAFE estimated mileage report of 45.3 miles to a gallon average. If they're selling trucks, that's going to be very difficult for them to do. Now, if they were selling Priuses or they were selling crossovers that are hybrid or electric crossover, like Volvo is going strictly hybrid or electric, I could see them getting the 42 miles to a gallon, 42.3, or I think maybe it's 45.3. The point being is it's almost unreachable with anything but a hybrid that I can see. Now, maybe the technology is changing. Maybe they're going to be able to have it where they can get 45 miles to a gallon on a truck. I just don't see that happening. I don't see that going the way they say it's going to be happening, because there's certain rules that you can't change, and one of them is the law of physics and how much energy you have in a gallon of gasoline and how much weight you have that you're trying to move using an internal combustion engine. There's just so much, you just can't change that. So what I'm seeing, what they're telling going to happen, they're saying in the next few years, you're going to see more and more trucks being sold out there and less cars on there. So cars count for just 30% of the production in 2017. That's last year. I mean, 70% of production of cars out there, new vehicles, were trucks or crossovers. They're saying that's down almost 40% since 2014. So we definitely see a shift going towards trucks. Now, here in the South, I think everybody has a truck. I know I have at least one. Just about everybody I know that have more than one car, they have one car and a truck. And pretty soon it's going to be, it looks like, where everybody is going to be, if you have 10 people out there, 7 of them are going to have trucks and only 3 of them are going to have cars. So that's where it's heading. And let's see, some automakers are better prepared for the shift from cars to trucks, which would be Subaru we were talking about, because they've been doing it for 10 consecutive years. They've been doing a pretty good job of keeping their cars out there, especially the Forester and the Outback. We see the Forester and the Outback coming to my shop all the time because, well, there's no dealership here working on Subarus. And unless you've worked on them before or have information for them, some people kind of shy away from them. They're really not that difficult. You have timing belts on them. They're just like a horizontal opposed Volkswagen engine. Instead of it being water cooled, it's air cooled. And it's really, it's all-wheel drive. It's just, just think differently. They're pretty dependable cars. A lot of people like them. They're especially popular up in the Northeast and the Northwest. Very popular up in the Northwest where it snows. Let's see what's going on right here. Let's see. Although May, the brand's car lineup, the Impreza and the Hatchback Legacy and the BRZ and the WRX has made up only 24% of the U.S. sales, down from 58% in 2013, meaning Subaru is definitely changing, and they're making this policy shift towards trucks. At the same time, the Subaru's total sales did rise from 2013 to 2017. So they're actually selling not cars, but the crossover trucks. Let's see, crossover is such a huge part of Subaru's business that sold more of them in January through May of this year than it did in all of 2013. Now, when I read that, I went, that's pretty impressive. People are buying crossover trucks. They bought more in just a few months, in 5 months of 2017. Let's see, I'll make sure I said this right here. Than they did in all of 2013. Just in 5 months, just from January through May this year, and they did in all of 2013. It's pretty amazing how we're seeing that going. Just a few years ago, the idea of people even owning a Subaru down here in the South seemed rather strange. I mean, we opened up a dealership here in Panama City. It stayed open for a couple years, but it just didn't take off. That's one of the reasons the Subaru dealership left this area. It just couldn't sell enough Subarus. Now, this was about I want to say 10 years ago. And since this time, I'm seeing more and more Subarus starting to make their way down there. Why? It's a truck. It's a crossover. It's not quite a truck. It's not quite a car. It's a crossover, so people can go off-road if they want to. Most people don't. But they'd have the ability to, so they're not, and if it's snowing or rainy, they'll be able to have traction and, muddy or whatever. They're able to go where they're going without being stuck. That's an advantage to it. Now, the disadvantage of having an all-wheel drive vehicle or a four-wheel drive vehicle is you get less miles per gallon. That's what I was talking about earlier, is what it's going to be for the EPA. I think they want to have what do they call it? The total, what it's supposed to be miles per gallon. If they want to have is 45.3 miles per gallon. That's what they're shooting by 2025. Now, that's not that far away. I don't see them making that unless they have a dramatic change in the way cars are manufactured, the way cars are produced, and how heavy cars are, and the type engines they have in them. Unless they're going to be putting trucks together, they're going to be hybrids, I just do not see them making 45.3 miles per gallon. Now, maybe if they put in a four-cylinder engine with like a Prius has, a four-cylinder engine with a hybrid assist, they can get that. I don't know if they can get that. They might be able to, depending on their battery packs. I just don't know. But there's a lot can happen in the next 7 years. We could find out very, very soon if they're going to be able to make it. So that's just a point to saying that things are changing in the automotive industry. It used to be cars outnumbered trucks 2-1. And now it's the other way around. Trucks are outselling cars 2-1. It's, really more than that. It's about 7 out of 10 cars sold out there, 10 vehicles sold, 7 of them are crossovers or trucks. So that's why manufacturers such as Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, they're getting out of the car lines. They're getting into trucks. Oldsmobile, Pontiac, those went away years ago. Saturn, they went away years ago in General Motors lines. We don't have Oldsmobile. We don't have Pontiac. We don't have Saturn anymore. They're all gone. Why? Because people are not wanting. They saw the writing on the wall years ago. They're moving towards trucks. And you say, well, trucks don't get the gas mileage that cars do. Yes, they don't. But America, like Americans, and I meet the same way, we like to have a truck. We want to have a truck or something we can haul stuff in. I talk to people all the time that bring their cars in. Why did you buy a truck? Well, I like trucks. I like to be able to throw things in the back and go someplace. And the trucks today you can put 6 people in them comfortably. Yeah, you can. And on some of the trucks they get on the highway, I want to say the EcoBoost trucks on the highway can get around 21, 22 miles to a gallon, I want to say, unloaded. Where in town they get around 15, 16 miles to a gallon, somewhere in the general area. That's not extremely bad, but that's not extremely good. That's a long way from the 45.3 miles to a gallon that they're expecting to have by 2025. So if you've got an idea how they're going to come up with it, I don't see how they're going to be able to do it either. Unless the trucks, is another thing to think of, maybe they're applying that strictly to cars. The gas miles are 45.3. And maybe that's how they're going to do it. They're just going to have maybe 2 or 3 lines of cars and working on getting those up to where they're supposed to be 45.3 miles to a gallon. That may be what's going on. Maybe the government is showing them, hey, unless you do this, you can't keep your doors open. But what ends up happening is the American public are going to decide what's going to be made and what they're going to purchase. The people going out and purchasing, voting with their pocketbook is what's going to make the difference on the cars, and that's what they're doing now. People are buying trucks. They're not buying cars. So, even if you have an auto repair shop, in my business right here, you need to make sure that you can be able to take care of trucks. We have to make sure that our lifts can pick up trucks with running boards on them, and we can pick them up safely and they're secure, because there's more and more trucks coming into our shop daily. I was looking at my shop yesterday, and all the stalls were filled, and I only had 2 cars. The rest of them were trucks. And I'm going, wow, that's amazing. All these are trucks, the rest of them are cars. And the reason is because people are voting with their pocketbook and buying trucks. They like to have the ability, years ago, if you had a truck, everyone called you when it was time to move. Well, now everyone's got their own truck, so maybe they won't be calling you so much if you have a truck to come help them move. I don't know, but the point is, things are changing in the automotive industry. Cars are going away. We're buying trucks. Maybe that's why Volvo, I think they said in 2018, 2019, they're only producing electric and hybrid vehicles, no gasoline engine by themselves vehicles. So, the years ago, when you had Volvos that just had a gasoline engine, that's going away. That's gone away. They're only going to be producing hybrids or electric vehicles. And that's the way of the future. People are wanting things that are friendlier emission-wise, and they want better gas mileage. Now, you're not going to get better gas mileage with a truck. And I know the gas prices go up, people will have short-term memories, and then they start saying, man, I need something like a Prius instead of a truck. Well, by that time, they've already got the payments they're making on their truck, and they're only getting 20 miles to a gallon if they're lucky. The reality is, it's just what people decide they're going to purchase with their pocketbook. And that's where it's going with cars and trucks out there. People want trucks. And so that's what you're going to see more and more of. Trucks gain in value. Well, not gain in value. They keep their value, relatively speaking, versus the car. Down here in the South, if you go look in the used car part in the paper for a truck, you'll see lots of trucks in there. And you'll see lots of cars in there. But the majority of things for sale are trucks, not cars. And the cars that do sell well are crossovers. They're like SUVs. That's what people are buying, like Kia Sorento or the SRX. The Cadillacs have. Those are crossovers, and those are what people are buying. They want something with more room, more leg room, and ability to put the kids in it and throw everything in the trunk, so to speak, or everything in the back. I guess trucks are going to be the station wagon of the 21st century. That's, years ago, back in the 60s and 70s, everyone had a station wagon, it seemed like. In every garage now, we're seeing trucks in every garage, and that's the trend for the next few years. It's going to be trucks, and more trucks. And if you want to be a part of this or let us know what you think about it, give us a call when you see us again at 850-763-0555. And if you have a truck that needs any work, give us a call and we'll see if we can help keep you on the road. We'll be right back. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Beep, 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 yeah! Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Rooter Plumbing, Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
This is James Morris. Welcome back to our second half right here. We're talking about car sales in the future, that cars are going away. We're going to be having trucks. But speaking of trucks, most of today's cars and trucks are coming out with direct injection engines. Direct injection engines are, well, they're smaller. They're normally a V6 or a 4-cylinder, and they just about all of them, I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them have turbochargers on them. And the reason is they're trying to cram a lot of air down on top of it with a little bit of gas and a high compression piston and direct injection to give you more horsepower, better fuel economy, and less emissions. That is the main reason we have direct injection engines. The reason they want direct injection engines is because they produce lower amounts of CO2 than non-direct injection engines. Now, at idle, there is absolutely no difference between a direct injection engine CO2 output and a non-direct injection engine. A good running engine will put out around 15% carbon dioxide at idle, sitting still. No hydrocarbons to speak of, no oxides of nitrogen, or NOx, because of the catalytic converter doing its job. But if you were looking at a direct injection engine with a 5-gas machine and a non-direct injection engine, the numbers would be almost identical. The difference is going down the highway. When you're going down the highway, you still produce about 15% on a good running engine of carbon dioxide. Well, with a direct injection engine, it's about half that because of the way of the design. It doesn't produce the carbon dioxide the way it's put together, the way the top of the piston is a pop-up piston with a little, like a volcano, and it uses very little fuel, and it ends up producing less carbon dioxide because they say that's a greenhouse gas. All the thing I can do is just tell you what they tell me, and I thought greenhouse gases were bad things, and carbon dioxide is what I, and you expend when we breathe. We take in oxygen, which is the air we breathe, which is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and with 1% inert, we take that in and we exhale carbon dioxide. Well, I thought that was something you're supposed to do because trees use that to make oxygen, but they're saying that's a bad gas out there. I guess if you get rid of all the carbon dioxide, maybe all the trees will go away. I don't know. But the point is, that's the way a direct injection engine works. And you get pretty good gas mileage, lower emissions, and great performance. Where else can you get as much pulling power or much torque with a V6 engine with direct injection versus a V8 engine without direct injection engine? There's a lot more torque and a lot more power. Just do a comparison of a Hemi engine, a 5.7 350 cubic inch Hemi towing a boat versus a 3.5 V6 twin turbo has more torque and more ability to pull and more performance and more power than the Hemi does. Now, I'm not trying to compare things to, put down one. I'm just talking about it's just physics. It's just the way the engine is made. It's completely redesigned engine. Hemi's a great engine, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have the torque at lower RPMs that a V6 twin turbo 3.5 truck has. And to keep these engines going, there's certain things you need to do, whether you believe me or not. One is change the fluids more often and use the right fluids. And we've always talked about that here. So people kind of say, okay, what fluids are you talking about? Well, engine oil, very, very specifically, I'm going to recommend full synthetic. Now, they'll tell you to run a blend. All you need to do is run a blend. And yeah, you can run a blend, but you can't run it as long as you think you can. If you're going to run a blend, change the oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles or every 3 months. If you're going to run a full synthetic, and I mean a full synthetic, not a Supreme Court full synthetic, but a real synthetic, which would be Redline, Amsoil, or Mobil 1. Those are the only three full 100% molecule by molecule made in a test tube oils. The other oils that you see that are called synthetic 100% are come out of the ground, they're oil, they've been hydrocracked, they've had additives added to it, they've been infused with all sorts of goodies to make them synthesized oil. Now, the Supreme Court says you can call it synthetic. Well, petroleum engineers say it's synthesized. It's oil, it's carbon-based oil that comes out of the ground that's been synthesized, and it's got synthetic, and the molecular structure has been changed. And yes, it's a good oil. Don't get me wrong, it's a good oil, but it's not as good. And I'm saying this from what I've seen from experience and me talking to automotive engineers that say, yeah, there's a big difference when you start hooking these cars up to $1 million machines and seeing how much wear and tear can be produced on them. You know, that's why I run full synthetic oil. Trust me, you can't go wrong. Just run Mobil 1, Redline, or AMSOIL in that car, you'll be fine. And change your oil about every 6 months or 6,000 miles, including the filter. Now, the oils don't exactly wear out. They get a little thicker with time. You can just get away with changing the filter. And I know some people with full synthetics that do that. But what I have found out is if they don't change the oil and filter, after about a year or so, they start noticing the engines may tick when it starts up in the morning. And the reason is because the oil viscosity has gotten thicker due to impurities. That's exactly right. So change your oil and your filter every 6,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first on the new direct injection engines. And about every second oil change, you really need to make sure that you, what's called intake valve cleaning. You need to make sure there's deposits are not being formed on the intake valves. And you say, well, how can deposits get formed on the intake valves? I've never had this problem before. I use good gas. Well, you got to use good gas. Don't get me wrong. Top tier fuel is very, very important on that. And I mean top tier fuel. It's fuel that has additives in it, what we call detergent additives to keep things from clinging and tacking to metal. That's what you get. If you don't have those scavenging agents in there, you get carbon deposits that'll cling to the face of the intake valve, right where it seats between the face and the seat. And the reason it happens is because the intake valve and the exhaust valve are open at the same time. And years ago, we didn't used to have that. The reason they have the intake valve and the exhaust valve open at the same time is to allow easier ingestion of more air with less energy. So the engine's able to take in air, but at the same time, it allows that overlap, that valve overlap, that hot exhaust gases will get on that cooler intake valve. It's not as hot as the exhaust valve, but it's not as cool as it used to be because there's no gasoline spraying on the back of it like it used to be on a regular engine. Direct injection is spraying right in the middle of the combustion chamber, just like a diesel. So when that valve opens, that hot exhaust gases whip around on that exhaust valve, and if there's any oil that's being pulled down from the valve guide seals, and it's not the best oil out there, not designed for this extreme heat like full synthetic, it will literally crystallize and turn rock crystally hard on there and actually keep the valve seat from sealing. So you'll get misfires. The car will crank up, misfire, run poorly, and then after a few seconds it'll smooth out and run better after it runs for a few seconds. That may happen, or the misfire may never go away until you take it to a shop and they take the intake manifold off and and not sandblast it, they walnut blast it using crushed walnut shells to clean it out and scrape it all out. To avoid this, you need to make sure that you're doing proper preventative maintenance, and not everyone has this problem. The people that have this problem are the people that use cheap oil, not the right oil. They may use a blend, they don't use full synthetic oil, and they're not using top tier fuel. So if you're putting the cheapest oil you can in your vehicle, and you're not using top tier fuel, say you're getting gasoline without detergent additives in it, you're a perfect candidate for this car to give you headaches at about 80 to 100,000 miles, long after you're out of warranty. Now, I've got some of these cars running around with 250,000 miles on them. They've been out since 2011, I believe was the first year they came out with. And there's some guys running around town, and so long as they stay on the highway and they use it as a work truck, they don't seem to have too much trouble with it. But the people that are putting around town, doing a lot of idling, doing a lot of severe service driving, that's harder on a car than getting on the highway and driving from here to Tallahassee. That's what I'm talking about. You, the severe service driver, are a perfect candidate to have problems with the intake valves and misfires. We see this not just on Fords, we see this on Chevrolets, we see this on just about any car out there that has a direct injection engine. BMWs were where I first started seeing it years ago. They introduced the direct injection engines I started seeing some of the 5 Series BMWs coming in here, and there would be misfires in the morning when they'd fire up. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and then I realized, hey, this engine's different than most engines I'm working on. It's a direct injection engine, and what could be causing the problem? Well, it was carbon deposits on the back of the intake valve. Correct it. We just did an intake valve cleaner. It's called IVC. I think it's you can buy the bottles of it from the parts store. Follow the instructions. You take a warm engine that's already at operating temperature. You spray it down the throttle body. Let it sit for a couple hours. They say an hour, but I like to let it sit for a couple hours. I use that entire can. I literally get the engine where just barely runs, sucking it down. I mean, the engine's spitting and sputtering. It doesn't want to run. It's misfiring. It's doing all sorts of things, but it's pulling this stuff down inside there. And it works on carbon. It decarbonizes the intake valves and the top of the combustion chamber. And anything else that gets in the way that's down inside there, it cleans it out. It just sits there like hydrogen peroxide and works on it. So while it's sitting and soaking, and then I say, okay, that's fine. Let it soak for an hour or two. Then I start the vehicle up. It's usually a little cantankerous. Normally the check engine light's on. That's why it's a little difficult for the average person to do it, because you got to clear the codes. And then you let the car, then once I fire the car up, I let it run for about 10 minutes just at idle. Just at 10 minutes idle, just to get if there's any pooling of the liquid in there that might hydrolock the engine. I don't want to suck it in while I'm accelerating, so I just let it sit there and idle for about 10 minutes after we've let it set, and then I go drive it. And I drive it very slowly at first. The engine will ping and rattle, and as the carbon's coming off of it, and it'll misfire, and oh, it sounds horrible. But after about a mile, everything just opens up and it starts breathing good and the car works better. Then I clear all the codes, hand it back to the customer, and the customer goes, man, you must have tuned my car up. It runs great. No, I didn't tune it up. I just cleaned the carbon off of it. And that's something your technician, if he's not doing with your direct injection engine, needs to be done about every other oil change, or about every 10 to 12,000 miles. If you're going up to 20,000 miles and not doing this, you're really building up a lot of deposits on there that can be treated relatively inexpensively and keep you from having big problems down the line as far as misfires, engine repairs, and having to take things apart. Because some of these, once they get a misfire that won't go away, and I've seen them where they can't get them to go away. You can spray all you want down there and it will not go away. You have to pull the intake manifold off, literally take a plastic chisel all the carbon off there you can. You don't use metal, use plastic, and get that off. And then, sometimes it's so bad you have to take walnut shells and put it into like a sandblaster and use walnut shells to sandblast the intake valves. This could all be avoided by you being proactive and using preventative maintenance, and that's what you have to do. Cars, things are getting different than they used to be. It used to be just convincing people to change oil every 3 months, every 3,000 miles. They worked on that for years, and people got pretty good at doing that. And then we started changing the mileage intervals from, up to 7, 8,000, 10,000, 12, once a year. And then people got pretty good at doing that too. Then they started realizing engines were making noise and not lasting very long, and then they ended up having problems. So they cut all that back in half. Instead of it being a year now, it's down to 6 months or 6,000 miles. So do not go more than 6 months, 6,000 miles between oil changes. And I really don't care what your owner's manual says. Remember, the owner's manual is to get you through warranty. Once warranty's over, it's all on you. So give us a call if you have any questions, comments, or want to be a part of the show. And we'll be back tomorrow morning right here on Fox 28 WPGX. Bye-bye, everybody. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.